Is this the beginning of the end for the African National Congress? Could the former liberation movement suffer another breakaway, and will it be able to survive another breakaway? Good evening, I'm Alderin Simpier, and this is Unfiltered. The chaos that is reported to have occurred during the National Executive Committee meeting over the weekend is said to have been triggered by the controversial step-aside resolution. The discussion document about the future of those facing criminal charges has apparently divided members of the NEC. Tonight on Unfiltered, we're asking you, how is the implosion of the ANC likely to affect South Africa's standing as a global player? Please do participate in tonight's debate and conversation on social media using the hashtag Unfiltered. And for the very first time, we will be taking your calls on the show. So the number should appear at the bottom of the screen, 011-714-5958. That number again, 011-714-5958. You can also call 011-714-5877, 011-714-5877. Let's welcome our guest this evening. We're joined by ANC veteran Mavuswa Msimanga, member of the ANC's Free State Anti-Corruption Lobby, Isaac Murwe, and the former deputy president of the ANC Youth League, Andile Lungisa, will be joining us a bit later on, as well as political analyst Professor Lisiba Tifo will be joining us also a bit later on, and we'll also be in conversation with Samkelo Masego, who is a reporter here at the SABC, about what's happening or what happened in that NEC meeting, which also resumed this evening. Let's start off this conversation by introducing Mavuswa Msimanga. How would you characterize the state of the party currently, considering what has come out of the NEC, especially the one over this weekend?
Yes, thank you very much. I take into account that the NEC is still in session as we talk now, because they couldn't finish their business yesterday. We are facing fairly serious challenges regarding the issue of unity. The result is that controversial things like step aside have become extremely controversial, and I think it contributed very much to the inconclusiveness of the meeting that was slated to finish yesterday. It's tough, it's very tough, because being the party in government, we're not really, we are not able to carry out the functions of governance effectively. We are contradicting each other in public places, and to all intents and purposes, the corruption that's been continuing for a long time is not easy to contain as a result of different positions taken by people on this very serious matter. There is a general undermining of your colleagues if they belong to a position that you don't believe in. So I would say it's a very serious situation, which I hope can be redeemed, but it's a serious situation.
Is it really an issue of unity in that Msimanga, or is it an issue of people disagreeing on certain issues?
It's very difficult to characterize the differences as based on what you would call genuine differences in strategy or in ideology. That is being used more and more as an excuse. I think the issue, as far as I can see it, is not that there is a group that's committed to a particular ideology and another that adopts a different ideology. So it's unity is elusive now, because the two streams seem to be really irreconcilable. I mean, popularly, you are hearing people characterize something as a radical economic transformation, because they believe in that, they take a particular position. You hear issues about white monopoly capital. That is the rallying call of the people who are taking the opposite position from the others.
Okay, Andile, let me ask you that same question. Characterize your characterization of the ANC in its current state, but you also believe that there is a threat of the party facing a breakaway.
No, I don't think there'll be any breakaway. What is needed in our country, especially from our own movement, it is to endorse the radical direction, which we have fought for that position for a long time, which I will really differ with the veteran of our movement, Utatu Mavuso, when he says ideological and political, we seem at the same level. No, there are huge differences. Political, we might agree, ideological, because ANC is a multi-class organization. It accepts all the thoughts, but it is a discipline force of the left. The left elements in the ANC have been always been there, even in the Youth League. We remember the generation of 2008 of the Youth League, which then developed a clear program of action in Gallagher Estate. When the movement went to a conference in Mangaung in 2012, that generation fought for the radical economic transformation. Even if you remember the NGC in Durban before 2012, the same generation fought for that radical direction in the ANC. Also, the last conference in Nazareth, in the commissions, even before the policy conferences, that generation fought for that direction. Unfortunately, some of the veterans, they took leave in the organization. They skip the evolution, other events in the organization. They're only coming on board now because of whatever interest they have now. That's why they don't have the organization memory, how the radical elements in the movement emerge, especially from NGC in Durban, the conference in Bloemfontein. There's been that approach where we're saying, especially the younger generation, we can no longer allow a situation where the majority of South Africans, especially Africans and blacks, they'll be.
Okay, Andile, so you say that there is no threat of a splinter group, yet your provincial secretary, Lulama Ngukaitobi, said that the ANC's dissenting radical economic transformation members can no longer be treated as merely a faction, as they have morphed into a potentially formidable splinter group.
No, I think he was just using more of a general knowledge, which is not based on any facts. There's no way where we have ordinary South Africans who are complaining about the unemployment. We talk about young graduates who have lost hope. And then when they are making a call that the economy must be able to open up, new sectors, we must be able to industrialize the South African economy. We must be able to make sure that the economy is transformed. We must tamper with the commanding heights of the South African economy. And then you call those who are making that call that they can form their own organization. It's more of halbalu. It's just hallucinations.
Isaac, do you agree with that characterization?
Not quite. Let me rather put it this way. The ANC, in its nature, is a revolutionary movement. It's quite radical. It's a radical organization. And if you want to, find out how radical it is, it takes a society that has been historically divided, into races, into tribes, and make an effort to weld it together. That's radical. It's a radical position. You take the economy in which another, section of the society had not been allowed to participate, in its ownership, and you decide, deliberately that that other, a bigger chunk of the society should also have access, to the economy. It's radical, But what Comrade Andile might be missing, perhaps, is the fact that in a proper scientific analysis, when you speak of, transformation of the society, you usually speak of socio-economic transformation. Why? Because there is, the social base and the economic base of the society. The two should always, be working together. To turn them around, it's not an easy task. And it's not an easy task, it's very clear, it's demonstrable in our society, where you find that the Africans in their majority still live, in townships that were reserved for them, and our white compatriots live in towns. But that doesn't necessarily mean, that we could then racialize the future and say that, there must be this radical economic transformation in which one particular section of the society should benefit and the other should lose. It shouldn't be like that.
Okay.
The ANC must be more dynamic than that, yes.
Okay, let's just quickly go to an ad break. Remember that we're also taking your calls this evening. The number will be appearing at the bottom of the screen, 011-714-5958 or 011-714-5877. We'll be taking some of your calls when we come back as we have a conversation about the state of the ANC and also that controversial aspect that was touched on a bit earlier on by Ndate Mavuso Msimanga around the stepping aside resolution of the ANC. Those conversations just after this. Okay, and let's take our first caller, Sezo, joining us from Durban. Good evening.
Good evening, Adrian. Yeah.
Sure, you can go ahead.
Okay. My question is to Andy Lungisa. As an ANC member, I'd like to ask who gets to, like, Ubani or esebenza again and the ruler step aside? Is it only ESG or everyone was implicated? If everyone is implicated, kuqalwa nini check ukuthi okay, SG is in court for cases of corruption, then you must step aside. So imaphi ama-institutions onasebenzisa ukuthi umuntu mevela kuwona you must step aside.
Amaphi ama?
Institutions onasebenzisayo like i-court.
Oh, okay.
You very in the court, yes.
Okay, no, thank you so much for that. Andile, did you get that question?
Yes, I did.
Sure.
I did.
You can go ahead, Andile.
Yeah, no. I think the question is very important, and then it's a principal question. Because what we're talking about, if you talk about the unit of the organization, you talk about the renewal of the organization, must not be selective. How do you want to renew the organization? If we talk about the integrity of the organization, we must also not be selective, because you've got the president who's highly affected. You've got the SGOs affected. You've got a number of NEC members who are affected, including the national chairperson is affected, Comrade Gwede, the Comrade Tandimodis, the Speaker of Parliament, a number of comrades who are part of the NEC. But you can see there are comrades who are specifically targeted by the media, also by certain groupings in the movement. If we want to renew the organization, let's subject all those who are implicated to the same process. Let us not only target the Secretary General of the ANC. Let us put all the comrades through the process, even if others they decided to seal the documents. If we seal the document, it means that we have a case to answer.
Okay, let's just quickly take this call then from Abby, I think is from Walkerville. Good evening. Abby, you can go ahead. Please just turn off your TV.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yes, Nhlakanipho lapho.
Nhlakanipho. Okay, Nhlakanipho, you can go ahead.
Yes, but I'm calling to get a clear explanation from the guys from the ANC.
About?
Yes, ongifuna ukwazi ukuthi is there a time whereby on our ANC members whereby we will see someone getting fired from a certain position and not be given another position. For instance, like Umam Gumede, like she was moved from where she was, and then she was given another portfolio. Is there a time whereby ANC sizobona khona umuntu if does wrong, ezoba get rid from the certain position, angayiswa kwenye portfolio?
Okay then, Mr. Msimanga, can you answer that question in relation to those who do face, those who are disciplined and those who probably do lose their positions because of charges that they are facing, that those people don't end up resurfacing somewhere else with another position? And the example that he gives there is that of the former mayor of eThekwini.
Yeah. That's a little bit difficult. I think it goes to the heart of what stepping aside is meant to achieve. That is called for in order that the person, the image of the organization is protected. If you hold a position, you are accused of and charged, in this case, with a criminal offense. The expectation is that you step aside. So that you do not continue. No. Now, I think what the caller is asking is whether you should then not be. I don't think it necessarily follows that once you are removed there, you ought to be given another position. No, it need not be like that at all. So special circumstances were in Durban.
But the redeployment, doesn't that not undermine the purpose of having a step-aside resolution?
I think it would, actually. Yes, I do agree that it would.
Okay. Okay. Isaac, your take on the step-aside resolution?
Well, it's a decision, a resolution that the ANC decided upon at the 54th National Conference. So I find it quite strange and concerning that after taking that decision, we fail to, live by the principles that we adopt ourselves. I would have expected, that on the part of the SG, for instance, that he was elected by an important conference of the ANC that took that decision. Is it not upon his shoulders to ensure that, as a comrade responsible for overseeing the implementation of conference resolutions, when there's one that affects him, it's put on the table and is affected, then he has to question it.
Would you say, Isaac, that this resolution is being undermined by the SG?
I want to believe that, yes, it is being undermined by the SG. I hear one comrade, Mkhize, saying that there are other people, who also have issues, but have they been charged? I'm sure that if they are charged, they would have to, answer to the same resolution.
Okay. I think this is now similar to that question that was asked by the caller earlier on. When we speak about charge, do you say somebody who has been charged by the police, or do you say that somebody who has been found guilty, even by the public protector, for instance, that person should also step aside? How does it work?
Well, the resolution said all those who are charged for serious crimes, especially corruption, to save the ANC from embarrassment and to give themselves, time to deal with their own issues.
Okay.
They should step up. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to a quick ad break. Samkelo Masego will be joining us to tell us more about what happened in that NEC meeting in relation to the conversation around stepping aside. Remember that we also continue to take your calls on 011-714-5958, 011-714-5877. And welcome back. Samkelo Masego now joins me here in studio just to give us a quick summation about the NEC meeting, which is still currently underway. Quickly, how would you characterize that meeting?
Pulo Mabe would say that the meeting was a meeting of a meeting, but one can categorically state it that that meeting is very tense. That meeting clearly shows that the African National Congress is a divided organization. It shows that it's two organizations in one, even though Andile Lungisa may differ on that particular point. But it's two organizations in one. You've got the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa, and you've got an ANC of Ace Magashule, which paints a picture of the roadmap going towards the 54th National Conference of the African National Congress. It's white monopoly capital versus radical economic transformation, as I always say. Those are the allegations from ANC members.
Okay. Professor Lisibatifa also joining us for this conversation. Prof, would you agree that it is as simple as that you have a white monopoly capital faction and then you have an RAT faction?
Yeah, either way you want to look at it, for me, at one level, all these debates are redundant. Critical for me is whither from here. The ANC is a broken organization. The ANC cannot save itself from itself. There are good men and women of character. Never mind how you label or you brand them, and I don't want to be drawn into that. But I would hope they would find it within themselves to say, it is all about the people of South Africa.
Yeah, I was about to say that if the ANC itself can't save itself, what about the country?
Indeed, a limping ANC is not good for the country. A limping ANC is not good for South Africa, for it gets diverted, divorced, and alienated from the people. It gets consumed by its internal conflicts and frictions. I'm glad I'm here, the only one not belonging to the party, and I can speak for myself to say the ANC at this juncture cannot save itself from itself, the rhetoric notwithstanding. There are things that they know they're not talking about that really brought them where they are, and they can make a difference if they were to address them. One, change the Electoral Act of the Republic of South Africa so that men and women of integrity can be appointed, not based on the color of their t-shirts, but on the content of their characters. Number two, they're talking about deployment and redeployment. Please don't deploy, just appoint, based on the content of the character. Because cadre deployment is what brought ANC exactly where it is. Good men and women in the ANC have been renounced and denounced, and they are in the periphery. But I think they are still willing to come back if they are given the appropriate roles to play, but with an organization whose moral integrity is not besmirched in the manner it is right now. Lastly, I would say, look, whatever we do at this juncture is bedeviled also by the scarcity of resources. And until and unless on the agenda, they also put the question of the porous borders on the agenda. Yeah. Give me another 10 years or 20 years, you and I will still be talking about a fractured organization that should lead the society.
Okay, let's just quickly say goodbye to our SABC 3 viewers. Thank you so much for joining Unfiltered this evening. But the conversation continues on the SABC News channel, that's channel 404. Okay, and welcome back as we continue to have this conversation about the state of the ANC. Let's just quickly ask Ndatim Simang, do you agree with the points that were highlighted by Joel Nechitenze, in that he also speaks about South Africans, including the mass of the ANC members, cannot allow the advances since 2017 to be squandered? Just unmute.
I'm very sorry. Very sorry. Yes, first of all, I would really like to respond to the Prof and say I cannot disagree with him that there are very serious problems of unity in the organization. It does not exist. We are bound by these things. Andile will not agree with me, but I don't think I'm doing it to get him to agree. You know, the rhetoric about radical economic transformation, you know, you don't quite hear what it is that constitutes that. What is it that some people are doing that does not conform to radical economic transformation. So the debate would go on forever and ever. But I'm inclined to say, like the Prof says, that right now, because of the difficulties, and corruption had really been the major issue, bedeviling the issue. And because many people in that high echelon are corrupt, the issues like step aside are not going to be implemented, not easily, because we were told earlier, so and so must also be removed and so on. You wish you could get to a situation where somebody would say, I have not done that, I'm not guilty of these things. No, I've done it like children, but also you must take out Tandi and so on and so forth. So we are very seriously divided, and you cannot move forward. Because what has crippled the economy here is nothing like white monopoly capital, to be very honest with you. I think the Gupta thing was more devastating, certainly in terms of state-owned entities. We've been under white monopoly capital. It was the intention of the revolution to deal with this kind of aspect. But I'm saying, corruption is the major problem.
Would you say that the Secretary General of the party, the current Secretary General of the party, is a source of those divisions?
I think it does not contribute to the solution at all. In my opinion, if the Secretary General faces charges, very serious charges of corruption and other things, he feels that he will not move aside because others who are also corrupt have not moved aside. I would have thought all the Secretaries General that we've had in the past would find it extremely difficult to continue in office if they face such allegations. They would simply say, in the interest of the organization, I will step aside, but I completely disagree. I am innocent, and I'll be vindicated. But no, here people are clinging to this power, never mind what it does to the image of the organization. That's the problem with the ANC. That there are people who are corrupt elsewhere, I don't really care about these factions that people want to group. Anybody who is corrupt ought to fall within the principle of step aside, regardless of whether they are thought to belong to whoever and so on.
Okay, we're going to go to a quick ad break. When we come back, we're going to take some of your calls. Also, what we're going to do is to hear from Samkelo about what former President Thabo Mbeki, as you've just seen now, was part of that meeting, had to say about the state of the SGO. Okay, and welcome back. Let's just quickly take this call from Sandile, joining us from Pietermaritzburg. Good evening, Sandile.
Good evening, Aldrin. How are you doing?
Good, man.
Right. Aldrin, I just want to weigh in on the issue of stepping aside for the members of the ANC when they are implicated. I think those who actually love the ANC, who really love the ANC, who are actually interested in the movement, not in other things like Andile Lungisa. Because I'm actually perplexed why you have actually invited this guy. Because this guy is also conflicted. He is there to defend himself. The reality here of the matter, when you are implicated in the wrongdoing, because remember, some of these comrades have stolen from the public purse. Now you have stolen from the public purse. So you are saying that you will be dragging the name of the organization into the mud, but you are saying that we should be doing nothing about that. So the constitution of the ANC, it puts it clear that when there are conduct which might actually bring the organization into disrepute. So those people, the organization must actually take action against those people.
Okay, then thank you so much for that, Sandile. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Quickly, Samgen. So the state of the SGO, former President Thabo Mbeki, part of that meeting over the weekend, What did he have to say?
The former president of the ANC essentially compared and took a historical account of the SGO office and the importance it's played in the ANC over the years, from struggle days to the dawn of democracy, to the formation of the constitution, and ultimately to the various conferences of the ANC that took place in the country. He spoke about a systematic erosion and degrading of the ANC SGO office. He compared it in saying that if you were to compare the SGO of today to that of the time when the SGO was held by esteemed cadres of the ANC like Dumanokwe, it's a far cry of what it used to be. The ANC SGO used to drive the public perception, the ANC's policy documents within society. It used to influence the political discourse in the country. Nowadays, the SGO is very weak. The SGO does not compare to what it used to be. For instance, you had the ANC stalwart here that we're having on the line, Mavuso Msimang, speaking of the importance of the SGO office. Some even characterized that SGO office in the tenure of Gwede Mantashe, saying it was the most difficult period. But whenever Gwede Mantashe took a platform, he will not openly disagree and openly fight with the incumbent ANC leadership. But as Sophie Mokoena also characterizes it this way, the ANC SGO and the ANC presidency, since the dawn of democracy, have always been a contested terrain. For instance, if you look at the period where former President Mbeki was then at odds with the then Secretary General of the African National Congress, that would be Cyril Ramaphosa. He then goes further to say, you look at a period when Cyril Ramaphosa resigned, Cheryl Corrales had to take over and take the ANC to his conference and deliver that organizational report. You look at a period as well where when Kgalema Motlanthe, the SG, was also divided with the president of the ANC, Thabo Mbeki, and what ultimately the divisions that were caused there, and ultimately going towards Nasrec, where former President Zuma was at odds with the Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe. You look at the importance of the roles the SGO played during that period in communicating ANC message and what there is today.
Andile, would you say that there is conflict between the Secretary General of the party and the President of the party? Now speaking about the individuals, not the ones who, not their supporters, but the individuals themselves.
No, there's no conflict between the president of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, and the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Mkhize. There's no conflict at all. The conflict which is there, it is around how other comrades in the movement that are being persecuted. Other comrades are using state institutions to persecute those who hold political views which are different from them. It's what we are witnessing.
But who are those people who are those people who are able to control those systems of government?
None of us are having the same situation. If you remember when we went to Polokwane in 2007, also when we went to the entries of the ANC in Pretoria, we had comrades who were in government. They use all the powers which they have to persecute those who had different views. This period is not different from that period. It's what we're faced with. We are having comrades who get arrested. If you go to KZN, the case of Comrade Zandile was arrested 2 years ago, was never even given charges. She was only given charges last week. What do you call that? We are talking about the Secretary General of the ANC was arrested in Bloemfontein. There were no clear charges, was given charges. Once those who have arrested him, they are still fishing other charges. That's why we are saying comrades are being persecuted by those who are in power. They are using state resources. They are using organs of state to persecute those who hold different views. It cannot be allowed in the movement. Let us all unify the movement, because the ANC, when it was formed in 1909 and 1912, it was formed to unify all Africans and blacks in general in this country. It's what we need to do. We cannot allow a situation where comrades would be persecuted and then all of us would be able to be quiet.
Okay, Isaac, just quickly then, if that is true, that state resources are being used to persecute, as Andile says, certain members who hold different views, then how then do we hold people who are in power accountable?
I would like to agree, greatly with Comrade Andile that indeed we need to unify the ANC. But I come from the Free State, where Comrade Ace was the chairperson for almost 20 years. And he was the premier for almost 10 years, I think 9 years and a few months. I haven't seen a single one of the people who have been affected by the corruption that happened under his watch being white. All of them are Africans. I mean, the asbestos roofs victims are Africans. They stay here in my own township. They stay all over the Free State. The people who are supposed to have benefited from the Freighted Dairy are Africans. None of them are white. So they're all Africans. So I don't understand when Comrade Andile says people are being persecuted, because people don't agree with them. I think with Comrade Days, with the charges that he's facing, I was his advisor, by the way, for about 5 years, a special advisor. Although lately he says, I never advised him on anything, it's fine. But I have had access, to the actual victims of that corruption. I've had access, to documents. I've had people, various people coming to see me, who have been victimized out of work. I'm not even raising that, because it doesn't form part of the charges. But what forms part of the charges is the asbestos, that people are dying of asbestosis. They are daily facing, the danger of, asbestosis, because their roofs for the past 60 years have been having asbestos. Their houses have been having asbestos roof. The corruption in Frede has not only left a lot of, persons there, impoverished, but it has also led to one fellow actually dying, being tortured to death.
Okay. Okay, let's just quickly go to an ad break. When we come back, we're going to conclude the conversation that we're currently having about the state of the ANC. And very important to this conversation as well is that if indeed all of this crime that has allegedly been committed in the Free State, for instance, why did it take so long to bring about those charges? Why were the charges not inferred even during the time when Ace Magashule was still the premier of the province? That conversation just after this. Okay, now we're taking some closing remarks as we wrap up this conversation. Professor Lisibo Tifo, considering what Isaac is talking about the corruption that he's seen during the time when Ace Magashule was still premier, how then should South Africans understand these charges being pressed against the former now premier of the province? Why wasn't it done back then? Does it tell us something about interference at all in terms of why weren't the charges brought against Ace Magashule while he was still premier?
Look, how this panel is constituted, I think, what is that, 40 minutes for 30 people? I'm sure you might want to review that. Look, for me, I don't want to be caught up in a narrative that seems to suggest that Jacob Zuma and Ace Magashule are the public face of corruption. Mm-hmm. It has been there. Some of us have been saying, lo and behold, one day the rot will run so deep, close to the marrow, and you won't be able to handle it. And it will torment the soul of the organization. And that's where they are. Yes, the two might not have covered themselves in glory, but certainly they are not alone. And my authority in this regard is Madam Batabile Kameni, who once said, for those who care to listen, we all have smaller skeletons in our closet. Perhaps it's just that they are not out there. But there is a catharsis, an opportunity for South Africa to learn from the Zondo Commission. Listen to what is going on there and say, how are we going to redeem ourselves and bring this country on the appropriate trajectory? The last word for the benefit of the students, especially of politics and history. The ANC finds itself in what in philosophy we call an interregnum. Interregnum. The old is taking too long to die, and the new is taking too long to be born, but something must give in. South Africa deserves better. And within the ANC, there are men and women of character, of substance. If brought back, they will serve that organization. If brought back, they will serve the country.
Okay, just quickly, the question around when somebody is in power, it almost seems as though that the charges would be slow. You speak about former President Jacob Zuma, for instance. During his presidency, the NPA decided not to prosecute, but this was only during the presidency. But when it seemingly came to an end, his power in office, then the NPA went ahead to prosecute the former president. And of course, this is because of a court judgment as well. How should we understand people who are in power and the lack of accountability that comes from these state institutions while those people are in power?
Well, there are instances when people would deliberately weaken institutions that are responsible, say, for prosecutions. And we've seen that in this country. You know, you can't avoid stating very obvious facts. I think right now, the National Prosecuting Authority is taking long to charge people. I hope they're improving, because they are really having to build from a very low base. They had been seriously ravaged by the introduction of people who were going to, who were primed to take a position that supported those in authority. The ideal situation is that politicians keep completely away from these institutions, and it is possible to do that.
Okay.
So that's why it is taking long, I would say, right now. But you know, for Andile to talk about so-and-so was charged and it's 2 months and so on, it's not nice. We experience this all the time in the justice sector, where somebody appears in court for mention, and I don't know what the terminology is, and 5 months later they're going to be charged. This is not unique to politicians. That's just how the system works.
Just quickly, Andile, do you care to respond to that? In a minute,
what
please,
we need in this country is to industrialize our country, is to build factories. You've got people who are unemployed, especially the youth, who have also lost hope in terms of looking for unemployment. That should be the focus of the leadership of the ANC. Yeah. We cannot have a leadership which will sit in the NEC meeting for more than 3 days fighting among themselves. Now South Africans, they are expecting the NEC to provide leadership. It cannot, when the NEC is sitting, they are fighting among themselves. We want leadership where they must be able to industrialize the country, build factories, transform the South African economy, transform the financial sector, all the sectors. Make sure that Africans in particular, and blacks in general, they are also part of the ownership of this economy in our country. We cannot allow ordinary South Africans to be the beggars in their own kind of bed.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, Andile, we've run out of time. Just quickly, Samkelo, the NEC meeting is still underway, but we do expect a briefing from the president. But then there's also another briefing.
We do expect that the president of the ANC is going to close the meeting. They will allow us access to it once he delivers those closing remarks, if he will deliver those closing remarks, as we saw yesterday to the postponements and the point of orders that were raised on the 7-day step aside for all those who are charged. And the SG, the politically and legally embattled SG of the ANC, is going to be having a briefing on Wednesday from his own words. We don't know whether it will be in his official capacity as SG or it will be on his way out, as he may be allegedly stepping aside with all of those who are charged. But it's two organizations in one, it's two bulls in one quarrel.
So from now on, if the NEC meeting comes to an end, there's also the conversation about how the former leaders of the party can assist.
There is a conversation of getting former leaders of the ANC to come and assist the ANC leadership in dealing with this conundrum that they find themselves in, as Andile Lungisa has pictured it, in a way that it's like that pre-season going to the Polokwane conference. I don't know about the legal aspect of persecution, but it is that fever of the SGO versus the president's 6th floor versus the 10th floor at Luthuli House.
What about the resigning in mass?
The resigning in mass, those who are in the Radical Economic Transformation faction, which is seemingly aligned to Andile Lungisa, are saying that if the step aside within 7 days is enforced, they will resign in mass, which will then effectively force the ANC to go to a special national conference. But in the ANC constitution, that can only happen if 50 plus 1 NEC members resign from the NEC, because if it's less than 50%, then if it's less than 50%, it would automatically mean that the ANC would have to go and co-opt other members to fill those vacancies that have been left by those who've resigned, or subsequently by those that have passed away that have been replaced in the ANC by co-opting other people. But if it's more than 50% that resign, it may enforce a special national conference.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We've come to the end of the show. Thank you so much for choosing Unfiltered with me, Aldrin Simpia, this evening. And thank you so much for calling in and making contributions to the show. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Goodbye.